Hello and welcome to the PDA Society's podcast. We're here to chat about all things PDA to help you understand what people with this profile of autism are experiencing and how you can help. We'll be sharing research, professional expertise and the insights of people with lived experience to help you understand PDA and have more tools to make life easier. So, whether you're a PDA yourself, a family member, friend or professional trying to make a difference, welcome from everybody at the PDA Society. We hope you'll find this useful. Hello, my name's Sarah and I am your host for this podcast. Today we're going to be delving into the topic of personal resilience, which I'm sure is close to many of our hearts. Before we begin though, I'd just like to warn listeners that we will be discussing themes on the topic of resilience, which may include some distressing examples. So just to say, do look after yourselves, and if you need to step away, then please do. So I'm delighted this week to be joined by Rachel Crutcher, our guest speaker. I'll let Rachel introduce herself. So morning, Rachel, afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everybody. As Sarah said, my name's Rachel. And I'm a parent of a PDA-er. I have an adopted 14-year-old son who is diagnosed with autism with a PDA profile. So I live and breathe PDA and learn from him every single day. I've also got some experience of teaching PDAs. I've worked as a secondary school teacher for about 20 years and taught a number of PDA children in that context. And I also work for the PDA Society as one of their lead trainers. So quite a bit of experience with PDA.
Absolutely. So I think this will be a really, really interesting podcast. So let's start with some questions and give a little bit of context and background to the topic. First of all, I suppose it'd be helpful if we got a clear sort of mutual understanding of what we mean by resilience. So if you think about it in the context of a PDA-er and parenting a PDA-er, what does resilience mean to you, Rachel?
Yeah, I think, at its heart, I think it is the thing that keeps you going every day. It's the thing that drives you to put one step in front of another, to keep understanding your PDA, understanding the behaviours and working out how you can help them best. Parenting a PDA can be extremely rewarding when you see the progress that they make. That might be sort of, very small steps of progress, but actually for that individual, it's huge. So that can be really rewarding, but also parenting a PDA can be challenging. So sometimes, it's those things that other families might take for granted. Let's go out for a day at the beach. But when you have a PDA involved, then that becomes a lot more complicated. And, you might have planned a wonderful day and then at the end of it, they just can't go because they can't go through with what they've agreed. So those simple things can become difficult. And therefore, the resilience is that drive to keep moving forward and also to be able to accept that, that actually sometimes those things can't be done. I think it also gives you that ability to bounce back from adversity. So, it finds that inner strength within us that, when things are hard, that we keep going. When your child might have a distressed behaviour, when they're in meltdown, for example, they might, have thrown something across the room towards you. It's that resilience that keeps you going and keeps you understanding and wanting to help. We often talk, I think, certainly in PDA circles, we talk a lot about the capacity of the PDA to be able to cope with demands. But actually, we also need to be thinking about the capacity of the parent or the carer or the support worker with the PDA and what their capacity is like, because their resilience will increase that capacity of that individual. So I think, resilience is at the heart, I think, of parenting a PDA, certainly.
Yeah, I love that expression, bounce back ability. I think,
Right.
that is so true. Yeah. And, I guess for parents, carers, people who are working and supporting with PDAs, it's so important because if we don't have that resilience ourselves, then we're not going to be there to be able to show up, advocate, care for, support the PDA. So lovely,
definitely.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, are you aware of any science which identifies what we need in order to be resilient?
Yeah, there is actually, yeah. Stephen Covey, who you might have come across, has written numerous books exactly on this topic. And he researches into how people learn and how that they change. And in his model of how people successfully make changes in what they do, he talks about the need for three things to come together. So the first one of those is knowledge. So this is the what to do and why we need to do it. Then he talks about skill, which is the sort of the how we do it, and then willpower, which is, essentially it's our motivation, isn't it? It's the want to do it, why we want to do it. So he suggests that in order to improve our resilience, so we can be more resilient, we need to be aware of and work on all three of those. So if we apply that sort of, the theory to a PDA context, and parents in a PDAer, so that knowledge will be the understanding of what causes those behaviours and the recognition of what's going on for our children in those difficult moments, but also in those happy moments, and understand and reflect what's going on, and also to understand what strategies we can do, how we can help our children. From the skill perspective, it's being able to put them into practice. So we might have that theory, but then what does that look like? What does that mean? And how do I put that into, practice? So, for example, we know that parenting a PDA, one of the strategies that we might use is give your child some choice. But actually, what does that look like? Do we give them open choices? Do we give it closed choices? How many choices do we give them? So it's the skill of actually being able to implement that, and maybe how you deliver those choices will make a massive difference as to how your child will react. So having the skill of delivering the knowledge and putting it into practice is important. And then, of course, that willpower is the want to be able to support our children there and help them find their place in the world. Do we have that drive, and so that we can keep going and keep pushing, no matter how many times we as a parent get knocked back. Actually, we really want our children to succeed. So those three things working together will sort of naturally help us build our resilience, and therefore be able to parent our children much better.
Okay, Rachel, so what characteristics do you have personally that would indicate resilience? So if I was watching you in your day-to-day activities, what things would I notice that would indicate that you were resilient?
Okay, I think probably the first thing is a sense of humour. I've learned over the years not to take things, when things go wrong, not to take it too seriously, and actually to try to laugh at the situation. So, for example, I had an incident last week where my daughter had been baking and she'd left the bag of sugar, almost full bag of sugar, out on the worktop. And about half an hour later, my PDAer was getting very, very anxious. He was going into meltdown. And as is one of his usual distress behaviours, he'll start knocking things off. And he knocked this full bag of sugar all over the floor. So your initial reaction is, oh, but then I managed to twist it and I laughed, knelt on the floor, and I started making pictures in the sugar. And then that sort of almost took him aback as to what he was doing. And then he joined me in that moment. And we were laughing about what pictures we were making. So it's that having that, the sense of humour, that actually it's okay. It's all right when things go wrong, and just to
Yeah,
laugh about it. And actually laughing as well, doesn't it? It naturally releases those happy endorphins, doesn't it? Which naturally calms you. But if you hopefully then if you can transfer that for your PDA, that will naturally calm their anxiety as well. So sense of humour, I think, is vital.
what a brilliant de-escalation strategy as well, because clearly he was in distress, and all of a sudden you've managed to de-escalate that by adding in that humour and that, conveying the message that it's no big deal, these things happen.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, because I thought, well, it's done now anyway, isn't it? So it's like, well, let's make, let's turn it into an activity that both of us found really funny. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was good.
So
Um,
again, then that's another thing that you just in the moment, it's that positive mindset. How can we turn something which is potentially, in my mind, a disaster? I was thinking of, oh my God, it's going to be sticky. We're going to have ants, all those sorts of things. But does it really matter? We talk about don't sweat the small stuff.
yeah,
That can be cleaned up. So brilliant.
yeah,
What else
exactly.
would we see, Rachel?
Yeah, I think also is the seeking the why. It's that constant want to try to understand what are the reasons behind the triggers. So if when he was heading into meltdown at that point, what's the why? Because if I can understand the why, then that almost sort of takes the frustration that I might be feeling in that, oh, we're gonna, something else is gonna get broken. But if I can understand why he's doing it, rather than focusing on the behavior of what he's doing, then actually that's lowers my anxiety, because it's not, I understand in that moment then that he's not doing it just to be destructive, or he's not doing it just to be aggressive. He's doing it because he can't cope. So it's the understanding of the why helps me mentally stay calmer and therefore more resilient, I think. Um, I think recognize those small steps. I think very often as all parents do, don't we? We look at the progress our child is making, and they might not be making the progress we want them to make in whatever aspect of their lives. And we look at the end game. We don't look at the small micro steps in between and recognize, actually, this week we might have only had 2 meltdowns, whereas last week we had 4 meltdowns. And even though for some people that might not necessarily be a positive because we're still having meltdowns, but actually that's progress. So it's
Yeah,
recognizing
absolutely.
those small steps, because I think all humans need to feel that they're making progress, don't they? That if we all feel, whether it's the child or whether it's the parent, you all want to feel that actually that I've achieved something more this week, this month than I have last time. And therefore, if we recognize those small steps, even if it is less of the bad stuff that we don't want to see, then that's still progress. So I think I certainly try to see all the time what steps he's making forward. My son really struggles. He's got learning difficulties as well. So he really struggles with reading and writing. And just noticing that actually, when he wrote that birthday card last week, his writing was a little bit smaller. It wasn't huge. And then he didn't cover the card with loads of huge kisses all over it. He did some small ones. And I was like, that was a brilliant step forward for him. So yeah,
Mm.
recognizing the small stuff.
Yeah, I think what you're describing there really is the importance of having a positive mindset.
Mm.
And it can be very, very difficult to do that. But we know that both positivity and negativity are contagious. So, however we are and whatever our mindset is, that's likely to, have a knock-on effect with everybody else in the family and also our PDAer as well.
Yeah,
And I think also what you articulated really nicely was that need to understand. So, first of all, before reacting, seek to understand, what is it that's going on for the child. This is not, about defiance or a deliberate attempt to sabotage something. This is distress.
yeah.
So actually seeking to understand that is great.
It,
Um,
it is, and I think it's it is the important that understanding is your key, isn't it? It's the understanding is the key, which what helps you build your resilience. And I think also sort of another indicator of resilience would be what support you've got in place as well. You need understanding that you can't be a one-man band. You can't do everything on your own. So whether it be support from family, from friends, from school, whoever it might be, but you've got people there that will support you when you need it. And I think
mm.
that's really, really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there will be parents, carers who are solo parenting, which can be doubly difficult. So we will have a look at some of the things that we can do in that situation a little bit later on as well. But I think one of the things as well, Rachel, that you've demonstrated your ability to do is actually reframe things. So
Yeah,
rather than seeing things as a negative, actually, how can we turn this into a positive? or how can we reframe it so it's not such a big deal? So, you know, a 2 kilo bag of sugar's been knocked over, but actually that's a quick fix. It can be swept up, vacuumed up.
Yeah.
You know, a window hasn't got broken, that's going to encounter a lot of cost. So trying to put things into perspective and keeping that positive mindset and reframing things is really, really helpful.
Definitely.
Okay, so the next question. If a new parent was going to come to you for advice, or a new carer, what would your top tips be for them when it comes to building resilience?
Right. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think certainly, sort of, being 14 years in, I do things extremely differently than did as a parent when I first found out about PDA. So I think first of all, try not to take things personally. You might have, your child might be physically aggressive, verbally aggressive. They might say things to you that are extremely hurtful. But actually, we need to remember that it's they're showing those behaviors to us because we're probably, we're the people they trust most in the world, aren't we? As parents, the children can show us their true feelings, and therefore we probably see their worst behaviors because they're releasing. And I think it's understanding that actually that's not personal about us. They might just have said, I hate you, whatever it might be, but they don't. They love you more than anyone else in the world. And actually, they're showing that by releasing those behaviors with you. So it's almost a bit like a backhanded compliment, I think. So it's that, don't take things personally. Things can be hurtful, but just remind yourself that you're the one that they love most in the world. That's why sometimes it can feel quite personal, but it's not personal at all.
That's
Um,
another great reframe that you've just done in the moment. So yeah, turning it into a positive, that actually it's because your child trusts you, they feel able to show their authentic self. So yeah, they're not masking because they have that wonderful relationship with you.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think also another thing with your PDA is always start the day afresh. So start, even if something's happened the day before, the PDA will need to know, like my son needs to know that everything's okay. And even once he's had a meltdown, he needs to know that everything, is, do you still love me, mummy? He asks, and he comes and gives me huddles that you're not cross anymore, you're not cross. And I'm like, no, 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 it's all fine. But for our own mental state, we need to start the day afresh. So as well as for the PDA, we need to start it because that will build our resilience. If we're holding on to anxiety that we start to build up in us the day before because of we were dealing with some distress behavior, actually, that's only going to start the following day with anxiety building up. Is it going to happen again? Start every day with a clean slate. It's really, really important, not only for your PDA, but for us as parents as well. I think as I said before, trying to stay calm as much as we can. If we can remain calm in the moment, we don't only help our PDA calm down quicker, but we stop our anxiety from going up too high. And as calm as we can, that will help build our resilience. When I can see my son's behavior beginning to escalate and his distress is beginning to escalate, sometimes I'll be in the room and I'll be in the room with him, but I will literally just close my eyes just for 5 seconds and just have a couple of breaths just to remind myself, okay, I've got to stay calm here. Because actually then that helps me be more rational and be able to think my way out of his distress behavior to stop it sort of channeling down into where he goes into full meltdown. So certainly staying calm and keeping my anxiety down will help build my resilience and therefore deal with situations a lot easier.
So it sounds a bit like co-regulation because they do pick up on our emotions. So if we're calm and collected, also it conveys that that's no big deal, that, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. Because essentially what you're being is your child's emotional brakes at that particular point in time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think a final tip I would give new parents is believe in yourself. You can do it. We can all do it. And even though it's hard, we can't, believe in yourself and don't let other people sidetrack you. If you believe your child has, for example, if they haven't got a diagnosis yet, and you believe your child has a PDA diagnosis, you've looked at the diagnostic criteria and you think, yep, they're ticking all those boxes. Don't let people put you off. Don't let people sidetrack you. You believe and you follow through in what you think, because mum's instincts or parents' instincts are usually correct. And I think that the same therefore would go to other parents or other family members maybe that are trying to give you advice on how to parent your PDA. If you know that strategy is not going to work, don't feel that you've got to follow through with that strategy, because actually you know your child best. So believing in yourself, I think, is
Yeah.
really important.
And again, it's adopting that mindset that you know what's best for your child, nobody else, and just accepting that, yes, our family is different. We may not be able to go on family holidays. We may not be able to spend birthdays or celebrate special occasions like other families, but that's okay. We have to live our lives in a way that is the best for our family, and will maintain the mental and the physical health of everybody in that unit.
Definitely. And it's okay to do things differently. I think very often, I think, as when we have children, we have this idea, before we have kids, we have this idea, don't we, of what parenting is going to be like, and I'm going to do it this way and I'm going to do it that way. And then your child comes along and it's like, okay, that's not working. Let's do something, we can have to do things a bit differently. And I think to begin with, we have that old self-blame coming in, don't we? But actually we need to take a step back and think, no, I'm just doing what my child needs. I'm parenting the way they need to be parented, so that's okay. And
Yeah.
it's all right to do things differently.
Okay, so we mentioned before about single parenting or single carers. Any top tips for people who find themselves in that situation, Rachel, and perhaps haven't got the luxury of a partner or somebody else that the child trusts?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So, obviously, if you're single parenting, then, you have the ultimate responsibility on your own for that child. But always remember that there are people there to help and to support you. So I mentioned earlier about, family and friends. Don't be afraid to call, to call on people to help. I've got a fabulous neighbour who all I've got to do is a quick text, a quick phone call, and just say, "Can you come up?" That's all I have to say, and she's here. She's here, and she'll, even if it is just to be in the house, to be with my PDA, or just to talk me through of something with a bottle of wine. That is amazing. It just helps, and also, it can be very isolating, can't it, to parent a PDA? So, if you're doing it on your own, reach out to support groups. There are some fabulous PDA specific support groups, because very often what I certainly found was that if I went sort of to sort of general, sort of send support groups, or if I went to autism specific support groups, a lot of the strategies and things that other parents would tell me work for their child, I was like, oh, that's not going to work for mine. But actually, then when I came across a PDA specific support group, then it was great, because it was just other parents that got it. They understood, they knew what I was on about when I was, sort of saying, well, there's no way I can use a visual. That's not going to work. And they understood. So reaching out to people, don't be afraid to reach out, whether it be an in-person support group or the multiple online support groups that are out there. Reach out to people in those support groups. It really helps. The PDA Society's got some Facebook groups specifically for parents, so have a look at those. Reach out to people in those groups, because then that there's people there that are going to get what you're going through. And even if it is that you just need to offload, if you're reaching out for help or support, I have found that those sort of groups are fantastic sources of support.
Yeah, so it's about sharing the load, really, I guess. We all want to be the superhero, but you don't have to do it alone. There is that expression, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah,
So I'm sure the same principle would go when it comes to thinking about our well-being as well. So do reach out. Don't feel you have to tackle everything on your own.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Rachel, for what has been a really insightful discussion. I've really enjoyed it and picked up certainly some new information. If you want to hear more, we do have deeper dive podcasts, which are available via subscription. If you want to find out more, please do visit the PDA Society website. And again, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
So, if you want to hear more from today's special guest, then there is a longer version of this podcast available over on our training hub. Sponsors of our training hub make it possible for us to create and put out this podcast for everyone for free. As a thank you, they get free access to all recordings and self-guided training on our training hub. Thank you, subscribers, for your generosity. If you'd like to become a subscriber, there's a link in our show notes.